Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. My name's Daddo.
I'm her husband, Cameron Daddo, and we are grateful to be recording on Gadigal land of the Eora Nation. How are you doing today?
I'm good. We don't have anyone coming into the bathroom today.
You just got us, listener. It's just us two.
Well, we have some things coming into the bathroom with us, which often do enter the bathroom for a lot of people, or in the olden days they used to.
Yeah, certainly. Well, they still do for a lot,
screens.
I'm sure. Yeah, we when you say we don't have anybody, we actually do, because we're talking about our favourite books that have helped us.
Yes,
along the
we're not
way.
having anybody, but we have things coming in.
Yeah. But people have written these books, so that's those persons, those voices are joining us today. What do you love about books? Are books important still in this day of screens?
Well, I think they're more important, actually. I find screens, as much as I'm on them, and, I am no Puritan when it comes to screens. For me, the difference that I feel physically in my body when I read a book to when I am on my screen is very, very different. I feel relaxed when I'm reading. It often relaxes me enough that I can actually go to sleep. I'll feel myself, my whole body relaxes, my brain relaxes. And it just takes me, that's the thing I always find so magical about books, is it transports me to places and times and imaginations of someone else in an instant, in those pages, just by putting letters together and words together. I'm in Turkey, I'm in London, I'm in a mystical, magical world. And that's how I've always felt about books. I think so many people my age, and now, but, grew up on the Wishing Chair books and the Enchanted Wood books, anything by Enid Blyton, I just devoured as a kid, which has made my love of Scotland and Ireland and England so right. Because I just was like, I have to go there. I have to find the Enchanted Wood with the pixies and the fairies in the tree and Saucepan Man, So, yeah, it was a real escape for me, I think, books. They still are, actually. They still are. How about you? Do you love books?
I do now. I didn't. Like when you and I met.
You never read.
35, 36 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Was it that long ago?
No, it wasn't that long ago.
She says, let's break some wine glasses. Getting ahead of myself. That's how long I've been acting for. Acting reading
what?
Scripts. Hey?
Acting what?
Acting life. That was always my excuse. I was always busy reading scripts and plays and stuff like that. So I never really got to books. But if I take it back further than that, I was not a voracious reader as a kid. And, to the point, like when I was studying at school, I would read the Cliff Notes. I would get the Cliff Notes, or I'd try and write an essay from the back of the book. On what the book is about, which is all the ones you're talking about. Like, guys are reading The Hobbit and these wonderful books, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, things like that. And I was like, read this, I get bored straight away and dump them. Now, cut to me as a more mature fellow with grey hair. I love my books. I can't wait to get to my books. Interestingly, recently when I was away doing the luxury escapes and doing all that travel, I would often find myself in the middle of a day, just be zooshing off to all these different places and talking and interviewing. I'd find myself dreaming of climbing into bed that night with my book.
Oh, there's nothing better.
Right?
Especially with your electric blanket on.
Well, yeah.
In wintertime.
In wintertime. It was pretty hot in Europe at that time.
Yeah, that's no good.
But I couldn't wait to get alone because I was always around people as well. So I completely relate to what you're talking about, that you dive into the pages, you're holding this thing. Because I know people use Kindles, and that's great too, or they're reading on their screen. Carrying a book around an airport and traveling is a bit of a pain in the ass, but I like to take that journey and hold the book and have it with me on the aeroplane or in bed later in the day and dive into that world. So yeah, they're really and thank you for that, because I'd go to bed and turn the light out and be all ready to go, and you'd be like, "No, I'm reading." What are you talking about?
You mean go to sleep?
Yeah, what are you talking about? So I'm lying there waiting for you to finish the book, and now I'm sawing logs. I'm done.
Oh, well, it's yeah. My whole, as you know, my whole family are readers, and I think that we all talk about the same thing, and we have our little Brahe library that we swap books around.
I was going to say Brahe Book Club that happens in your
family. Which
family.
is fantastic. But I'm the same as my mum. It can be 3 a.m, and I will be utterly knackered, and I still have to read for just a little bit before I put my head down. It's just a habit, or it's just my relaxation time. I just love it.
And I'm so glad that it passed on to our kids, because they all, I actually don't know how much, maybe I rubbed off on River because I don't think he reads that much, but certainly the girls.
Yeah.
Like Lotus read the entire Harry Potter, or Riv was too, he was reading Harry Potter. I tell you what, J.K. Rowling's got, she's got a lot of good karma.
She got millions of kids reading again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I read her books because I was reading them to the kids out loud, so at night time. But yeah, it's rubbed off onto them. I know Lotus got through the entire Game of Thrones thing, so she was able to help us during that series. She would be like, okay, now we need to pause here because this is what's going on here. If you don't understand this, it's written in the books. She was a little bit.
Do you remember the book that, like, is there one book that you go, that is my quintessential go-to book that changed my life or gave me the best piece of information? Is there one that you just go, that was a life-changing book?
Yep. Does that surprise you that I know?
No, because I think we've already talked about, we were going to talk about that on the podcast. Sorry to just pull the rug out from under you. But
Yeah. No. Oh, gosh. Is that what we're doing today? No, because this was a book that I read before I met you.
Oh, no, okay. This is going to be a surprise.
Yeah. Bryce Courtney, The Power of One.
Oh, I remember you telling me that you loved that book.
I loved it, and that was the one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would drift in and out of books, right? Before I met you, I used to read them every now and again. Mum put me on to self-help books. I remember the first self-help book she gave me was called I Can, and she gave me that in 7th grade.
And you went, I can't.
I said, you can't.
Right.
So you can. She gave me I Can, and that helped me out a lot because it was really framing things in a positive way. There's another one that's going in the back of my brain, but I can't remember it. Can't be that important. But Bryce Courtney's The Power of One was probably the first. That's a substantial piece of writing.
Book.
It's full of great stuff, and I loved it. I devoured it, and then I got his next book after that, Tandy, I think it's called. So I was a big fan of his work, and also what opened my mind up to me with him was that he was an advertising executive. He wasn't known for, I think The Power of One was his first book, if I'm not mistaken. I wasn't expecting to talk about The Power of One today, but that was the one. What about you?
It was actually it was all the Enchanted Wood and Wishing Chair series as a young girl. Like, they were the ones that took me to such a deep place, and it in my imagination, and it is what has driven me, those books, to want to write children's books today. It is those books, because I love anything. Well, I love the whole fairy realm and the elf world, and and it's what's made me love the Lord of the Rings and all of those books. And so, but those books were just, I was there in that tree, and they're so vivid for me. I just love them. I think we read those books to the kids. I've lost count. And then, of course, I have to mention the book that will be the quintessential Elle and Daddo children book is Hounds of the Morrigan. And I know I read it myself, and then I must have read it to each child more than once. And now I give it as gifts to teachers because
do you?
it's such a beautiful book to read out because it's all based on the true myths of the Celtic philosophy and the Celtic myths woven into this magical story for children. That one.
And grown-ups too.
Grown-ups.
It enchanted me.
I mean, that book took me to places that were just so fabulous. What about self-help books? Have you come around to self-help books again though now?
Well, that's all I was reading. Do you remember, there was a time...
in America.
It was all the self-help books. There was also, when I remember I was hosting TV back in the day, early on, I was buying books of like ridiculous information, like why does a fly walk upside down? I think was one of them.
Oh, and who stole the cheese or something?
Oh no, that's a good book.
Is it?
Okay. Oh yeah, who took the cheese? Yeah. Second, first mouse finds the cheese. Second mouse eats it. That's a little nugget of wisdom, that book. But no, I was only reading self-help books, and it was like, if I'm going to spend all this time reading, I better be learning something. So reading a Jack Reacher book, which I really enjoy now.
Yes. You love them.
I love those. I love the series of Jack Reacher books. Those sort of ones where I'm leaning into another world. I didn't have patience for those books at the time. I thought, if I'm going to be reading a book, I better be learning something about it. There better be something that
it just becomes work.
It was, but it was just constant work. I was like, oh my, get up, read a script, learn the lines for an audition or the job I'm actually on, and then there was no time to lose myself into another world, which I think that was to my detriment. Because we've got to give our brains room to breathe and shake the rug out and let the air go through, So I was constantly filling my mind with information.
If I've got a self-help book going, I've got to have another book going at the same time so I can switch back and forth, because the self-help books, generally I love them. And we, as you know, we have quite a library of them. Though I do love to have the balance of like some fictional book going at the same time, because then I can take the information, because I find that often I can only read small amounts of the self-help book in order to digest the information and make sense of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I just think having the balance of it, for me anyway.
I was going to do an honourable mention of a few books that, like, I bought 3 in to talk about, but there was the honourable mention. The great self-help book, which is wrapped up in a novel, is The Alchemist.
Oh, great book. Yes, because it's a story.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's a story, and then there's the learning through it as well. Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. There's something spiritual about that book. I mean, I read that book years ago. And then you might remember this, but whilst I was doing Filthy Rich and Homeless, the SBS show, and I was on the street, I found the book. I found that book in a pile of books in a dumpster. I was looking for cardboard to sleep under, and there's that book in there. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy, because it was basically reading about my journey through that show. And reading that book again, it was so timely. I'm like, this is magic.
And the story of how that book came to be is phenomenal, because that fellow,
Paulo Coelho,
he wrote the book, and he tried to sell it. No one wanted to publish it. Then he self-published with like 100 copies or something or other. But, the right person got a hold of it at the right time. And it's still like in the top sort of 100 bestseller books of all time. Like it's still there. Like people are still buying.
Still buy it, yeah. I mean, how many reprints would it have had, you reckon?
So many. So many. One of the books, and I mentioned this book in my book that I wrote, but it's Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, and by Christiane Northrup. And that is like a little Bible for me, in the sense of I can just dive into that, get some information. It's not a book that you do read from cover to cover.
Right.
It's you go in and you take a little chunk of what you're working with physically, mentally, emotionally. And I love how she writes. I love the information that I've learned from that book. And I give that book away a lot. I like to give that to women that are, well, I like to give it to women anyway, but certainly if they're struggling with something, that's been a real ripper of a book.
Two of the books I bought in are better self-help books, kind of things. They're ones that I will go to. That I'm a big believer that when I go to bed, I like to dream on something. So I will often read a bit of a self-help book. And I've come across The Obstacle is the Way by a guy called Ryan Holiday. And it's on the cover, it's the ancient art of turning adversity to advantage. And this guy, I got hold of him through, he's part of the Stoic movement, which is gathering wisdom from Marcus Aurelius and various people like that back in Roman times, and how relevant it is today and how brilliant it is today. And there's a bit, I love the quote. There's a quote on the back of it by Stephen Pressfield, who wrote the War of Art. He wrote, this is what he writes about the book. Decants in concentrated form the timeless techniques for self-mastery as employed to world-conquering effect by philosophers and men of action from Alexander the Great to Marcus Aurelius to Steve Jobs. Follow these precepts and you will revolutionize your life. And he's absolutely right. There's so many great things. It talks about, I've got this is dog-eared up to the wazoo. He talks about Roosevelt and telling stories of all these amazing people that have overcome adversity and using obstacles in your life instead of going, oh, crap, this has happened again. It's like, you know what? Let's dive a little deeper into that obstacle and see what's in there for me. And that, I just think it's transformed my life.
And how?
Well, I used to run away from stuff. If something got hard, I would run away. And how? Recently, I did this Oxfam 100-kilometre walk with my pals. It's the hardest physical thing I've ever done. Ever. I've done some hard things. This was just walking on day one from 9:15 in the morning and continuing to walk with 3 or 4 breaks for half an hour till 5 a.m. Through the roughest country I've ever been in. Wet, cold, all that stuff. Why am I out here? But I kept coming back to this idea, the obstacle is the way, and just keep going through. And the word that kept coming to me at the end of it, like waking up Sunday morning, was finisher. Finisher. And I was like, what is that? And I was like, I've not been very good in my life at finishing things up. I find it really hard to finish a story or finish a song or whatever my creations are. Finishing, kind of rush to a finishing line. But this part of it, I was like, you know what? This has proven to me I can finish and finish with, I don't know, dignity or some pride in what we achieved as the team. We are coming through this thing together. So that's something that the obstacle is the way. Use the obstacle to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one book that I think, as you've lay there next to me in bed, that you've had the most verbal response to. I'll be reading my book. You'll be reading your book. Oh, yeah. Oh, you have to read this, Ali. Oh, yeah. Oh, the kids have to read this.
Oh, the kids do need to read. Well, just have it there. Just put it in your arsenal. Have a couple of books tucked away that you go to.
I know. It's so true.
Great idea.
It's so true. Yeah, just come back to. Two books that influenced me heavily as a person and as a writer as well.
Yeah.
If I can call myself that.
What do you mean?
I know. I just said it and I went, oh my God, imposter syndrome just caught me for a hot second there. Okay. Yeah. As a writer. All right. Moving on. The book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle and Wild by Cheryl Strayed. And it's similar in the alchemist way, where they're telling their story. And that's what I love. I love a story being told from the first person of what they've actually lived and how they've transformed themselves because of what they've learned through what they've gone through. And those two books, it's how I wanted to write. It's just raw and super honest and really gritty and calling bullshit on yourself. And Brene Brown, of course, is someone else that we both love. But
and
those,
great podcasting too. If you can get hold of a Brené Brown podcast, they're all good.
Or her TED Talks.
Yeah.
But those two books, Elizabeth Gilbert books, I just adore as well. They all have a similar tone to them of they're self-help, but they're not self-help. But they just have helped me enormously as a woman, particularly, to just bear more of myself, because that's the way through something. That's the way to evolve and change. So they've been life-changing, all of those authors for me.
There's David Goggins. Did you get me that book?
I did.
That's right.
Yeah.
The David Goggins book.
Yeah.
Can't remember the name of it, the title of the book.
No, what is it?
Google Dave Goggins. He's an ex-military guy. He's actually I think he's the only person that's gone through the 3 Air Force, Army, and Navy SEALs. Yeah. Gone through all their Ultimate Warrior programs, and so now he's out there, and he started off as a 300-pound couch potato, literally, and then got himself up and went through it. Yes, It Can't Hurt Me is the name of it.
That's right.
Can't Hurt Me. And he's a bit this. Look, you've got to be ready for the dialogue. I mean, he doesn't hold back, and he's quite explicit in the way he describes himself and describes what he's going through. And you can look him up. He does YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff as well. But again, he's a bit like that too, in that it's his story. Yet there's a lot to be gained through his story, which, and I feel like people are getting more raw and more honest because we want that. We don't want to be sold to anymore.
Yeah.
We're tired of that. It's like,
you can see through it.
Yeah.
You can see through it. Yeah. Yeah, we're smarter than that.
One of the other books I bought in, this guy's written a couple. Mark Manson, Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Yeah. That's still like into the top 20 books.
Yeah.
That's been around a while.
Yeah, it's still at the airport on the wall.
That's right.
It's probably where I read it. But I love it because it's a counterintuitive approach to life. And I've read it a couple of times. Again, it's pretty dog-eared, and
you gave it to my dad too. You gave my dad a copy of it.
Did I?
Yeah, you did, as a gift. Yeah. Yeah.
Did he read it?
My dad would have. Absolutely. Probably the title would have put him off a little because of the F-bomb, but he definitely read it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just this is a description. He says this is that. Oh, not trying. Yeah, don't try is one of his things. Don't try. It's like, hang on, everyone's telling me to. You've got to try. You've got to make an attempt, and be happy. And here's all these books on how to be happy. And he says the thing that's wrong with all the How to Be Happy SH1T that's been shared 8 million times on Facebook in the past few years. Here's what nobody realizes about all of this crap. The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. Now, he's written that in bold, going, what did he just say? And he goes, okay, this is a total mind F. So I'll give you a minute to unpretzel your brain and maybe read that again. Wanting positive experience is a negative experience. Accepting negative experience is a positive experience. It's called backwards law. I mean, it's full of stuff like that. So again, yeah, you can. For me, most nights I only read about 5 pages because I'm like, maybe I get up in the morning and reread it again. But it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good one too. What's your next?
My next one is, this was an interesting one. It's called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. A surprising new science that will transform your sex life. And she is fabulous.
And has it?
I have. I listened to her on Glennon Doyle, her podcast.
Yeah.
And I just loved what she had to say. And it says, this is the best book I've ever read exploring the science of female sexuality. And why some couples just stop having sex and what they can do about it. Come As You Are is an absolutely necessary guide for all couples who want to understand the ups and downs in their own sex life. It's a must read. And that's by John Gottman, who's from the Gottman Institute.
Okay.
For relationship stuff. To me, the Gottman work is probably one of the best in the world. So that is... I preferred listening to her talk than reading it because, again, it's sort of that storytelling aspect of it. Though really loved this book. If there's challenges sex life-wise or just within your own sexuality, it's very, very enlightening. And I think there's a lot of women out there that struggle with that.
Is it for dudes too? Should I be reading this book?
That's a good question.
I have them every now and again.
Sure, why not? You'll understand female sexuality better, and it might give you an understanding of women. Me, I don't know.
That I need?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't say that for you.
Have you finished this book?
No, I've not finished it.
How far are you through it?
It's one of those ones that I'm doing chunks at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm about... Where was I up to? I'm about a third of the way through.
Okay.
But it's really good.
Are you implementing changes? She shakes her head.
I knew I shouldn't have brought this book.
You shouldn't have brought that book. Is that what you said?
All right.
I'm going to ask you questions about the book.
Show me your next one.
My final book is one of my favourite books. He's one of my favourite people. I've never met him. I think I'd have one of those total meltdown moments when I'd fall in a puddle. Keith Richards, guitarist of the Rolling Stones, wrote a memoir called Life. And I remember buying it. I've read a few Stones things. Bill Wyman's one. Charlie Watts, great. Keith Richards one. I just find him, I don't think he's actually sat down at the typewriter to do it. I think someone's turned a microphone on and he's just talked, and then they've just transcribed it because it's very much in his voice. But he covers everything from pre-Rolling Stones, meeting Mick Jagger, meeting the band, and going through all the things that they've gone through, to the breakup of the band and how Mick... I never really understood why, what the argy-bargy was between Mick and Mick Jagger, but he talks about it, and he couldn't believe that Mick Jagger would actually, in the 80s, disappear and record and tour, which is interesting. It was more tour and play with other musicians on stage than the Rolling Stones. He just thought he goes, he'll never do that. He'll never play without us, and he did. And so a lot of it played out in the press, and I remember reading it at the time, and there it is. His generosity, though, to guitar players and musicians is he talks about his tunings, because to play "Start Me Up" or one of these songs that he does, those iconic riffs that Keith Richards created, you play them in normal tuning of a guitar, which guitars come and sold, and we're all told that that's how you play the chord because that's the way it's tuned. Try and play those riffs in normal tuning and you can't do it. But he gives all his tunings up on how he does it, including like taking the sixth string, the bottom string off, and going, take that string off, play a 5-string. It's great if you've got a roadie there with all the guitars sitting back. Here's this string for here's this song for that this guitar for that song. Hey, Mick, give me that one. You know, throwing it all on. It's just such a generous piece of writing, and it's great because he like I said, he gives up those tuning secrets and tells where it comes from, and he's such a lover of the guitar and how it's like this thing is 22 frets. There's 6 strings. The permutations that you can do. He goes, I'm learning every single day. And here he is as an 80-year-old plus. The Stones are back on the road again. They're touring again.
Is he in his 80s?
Yeah, man.
Is he?
Yeah.
Hey, man, like you're getting real groovy with me now.
Didn't mean to do that.
Sure, okay.
But I'm so impressed because it's such a great example. Like, there they are. They're like, they're still rocking.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
And they look like they're having so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm following them on Instagram as they go around the world at the moment.
I mean, surely you'd want to have fun in that kind of world, wouldn't you? Why else would you do it?
Yeah. And I mean, and they still put on a similar show. One of the best concert I ever went to was when I was 16 and we're living in the States, and went to Philadelphia with my pals, drove there, and we saw George Thorogood, Journey, Foreigner, and then the Rolling Stones come on.
Wow.
In a stadium at Philly.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. And they're still doing that. They've still got that energy.
That's huge.
Playing a lot of the same songs, mind you.
But that's what people want to hear.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a great book, Life.
As you know, I am a massive fan of biographies and autobiographies. I love someone's life story. So we've got a lot at our house. We've got a whole shelf dedicated to just autobiographies.
Yeah.
All right. So to finish up, I'm going to say I have finished this book, but my favourite Australian author is Trent Dalton right now. I've had a few. I've had Kate Morton and other people, but Trent Dalton, his book Love Stories is just, I think that was probably the one I maybe made the most sound as I was reading it, because it was like a lot of, and
are you lying there with someone else, honey? What's going on?
Oh, it's so sweet. Oh, this is so beautiful. I mean, I cried through this book like no other book, because it's just a book about love, and his writing for me is so magic. And he writes this: there's a sign resting against my desk. Sentimental writer collecting love stories. Do you have one to share? Because that's what he did. He went out in Brisbane and set up a desk with that sign. You would not believe the things people will tell you when you take the time to shut the hell up and listen. The wisdoms, the secrets, and the stories, so heartbreaking, triumphant, romantic, exhilarating, hilarious, tragic, and wondrous, just like life. Might leave that there. Separate bathrooms, all about love and relationships.
Reparation.
It's just gorgeous. Yeah. So that is a book I will have forever. Love Stories. Love that.
It looks like a well-loved version of it. It's hardcover, but it's got a little bend in it.
Yeah. It's probably where I was hugging it to my chest.
Any honourable mentions?
Oh, man. Well, I did mention Kate Morton before. I love all of her books. The Forgotten Garden was her first book, and I just think that is a magical, magical book. I mean, there's so many. Yeah. There's so many.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the Alchemist. Dave Grohl's book, or books, Storyteller. I don't remember what his first book is. It's a really good one too.
Jodi Picoult, there's her book called The Storyteller, is one that my whole family fell in love with. We all talked about that. Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh yeah.
That recent book. Me and Lolo loved that book. Yeah.
If there are any actors or people interested in acting listening, there's a ton of really good acting books out there and books on acting. Yet if you want to marry a book, a story or a biography to great acting advice, Michael Caine's book, it's called Blowing the Bloody Doors Off. He's amazing. And The Elephant to Hollywood, which I think was his first book, full of really amazing advice, and but what a hilarious fellow. Just fantastic, you know. So yeah, There you go. There's some of our favourite books
There's
right
a little
there.
slice, indeed, of our library.
Thanks so much for being with us. We'd love to know what your books are. Maybe you can give us some suggestions. We do post regularly on Instagram. Al's at, what's your address?
Oh,
At
gosh.
Elle-Daddo.
It could be.
Could be.
Could be my name.
There you
Yep,
go.
Elle-Daddo.
Mine's at, well, it could have been Alison.
True.
Yeah. Could have been your old one.
No.
No. At Elle-Daddo. I'm at Cameron Daddo. We'd love to know.
But you can email Nova Podcasts as well with ideas or questions or answers. But yeah, I'd love to know what people are reading.
Yeah.
Send us your recommendations.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today. We'll see you on the next Separate Bathrooms.
Happy reading.